Hi, everyone. Happy Naw Ruz. I have a gift for you, a story that I've written about Maggie, which I hope you'll enjoy. Perhaps you remember Maggie celebrates Ayyam-i-Ha, and at the end, she wondered about Naw Ruz. Well, here's the story about Maggie and Naw Ruz. Maggie gets ready. Maggie's brother Freddie knew. Freddie's friend Lua knew. Lula's friend Ramin knew what everyone now knew, even their parents, that Maggie was doing something special for Naw Ruz. But nobody except Maggie knew exactly what. They all knew that she had glitter, and they knew that she had a wand and a crown. And they knew that every night after dinner she went into her room and closed the door. There she did something that involved scissors, glue, and cardboard. Then, when she was done, she put it all away in a locked box. How did they know this? Freddie had told them, but that was all he could see and hear from the space between the closed door and the floor. They also knew that she'd been personally invited by Mr. Marshall to do something special. Maggie had a letter saying, "Dear Maggie, let's do something special for this year's Naw Ruz party. What do you think? Call me when you can. The party will be at my house at 6:30 on Saturday, March 20th. Your friend, Mr. Marshall." This is what she wrote in return. "Dear Mr. Marshall, I have a great idea. It will be a surprise. I will work on it every day. Enclosed is a list of supplies I will need. Call me when you get this. Your friend, Maggie." Then she sent this to all of her friends. "Dear friends, I need your help. Can you please send me a virtue? Just like the adults, I want to get ready for Naw Ruz. The new year is going to be awesome. Thanks, Maggie. P.S. Oh yeah, Mr. Marshall and I are planning a big surprise at the Naw Ruz party. Hope you can all come." As soon as Maggie's friends received her message, they started sending her virtues. Some came by phone, some came by email, and some by regular mail. Forgiveness was written on a piece of paper and slipped under her front door. Cleanliness was tucked under the cat's collar. All of her friends, both young and old, helped, even though they still didn't know what Maggie was going to do at the party. No one could guess, and Freddie's detective work didn't help. They had no choice but to wait. It was the month of Allah, the last month of the year when adults fast. From sunrise to sunset, they don't eat or drink. They say lots of prayers. Maggie wanted to get ready for New Year, too. On day one, which was March 2nd, Maggie practiced happiness. "Today I'm practicing happiness," announced Maggie as she entered the kitchen. Mother and father were already dressed, having risen way before the sun to eat and say prayers. Freddie was still in his pajamas with jam on his fingers and face. Maggie was ready for school. She began by telling some new jokes. All throughout the day, she told jokes to whoever would listen. On day two, Maggie practiced being truthful. She had an immediate opportunity. Mother thought Freddie had broken the fruit bowl. Maggie explained that she did it. And on day three, Maggie was kind by laughing at her father's old jokes, which she'd heard many times, but he just loved to tell. And so on and so forth. For 19 days, Maggie practiced a virtue. And at the end of each day after dinner, Maggie went to her room, closed the door, and worked on her secret Naw Ruz project. Freddie tried his best to figure out what his sister was up to. Knock, knock, knock. Special delivery. Leave it at the door, thank you. Knock, knock, knock. Maggie, help. Help. I'll help you later. And even knock, knock, knock. I'm eating the last cookie. Okay, enjoy. Finally, the day of the party arrived. Maggie was so excited. It's time to get ready, shouted Father. Let's not be late, reminded Mother. Maggie, can I help you now? Asked Freddie. No, they all replied at once. In her best dress, behind closed doors, Maggie unlocked a large box. She removed a crown, a cape, a wand, and glitter. Proudly she draped the cape around her shoulders, placed the crown atop her curly head, and sprinkled glitter in her hair. She even rubbed a little on her face. With all that glitter, sunglasses were definitely in order. Looking in the mirror, she did a little dance and then picked up the wand and laid it in the crook of her arm. Now she was ready. Once again, Maggie reached into the box to remove a small, beautifully decorated box. With the little box tucked under one arm and a wand tucked under the other, Maggie put on her most serious face and went downstairs where Mother, Father, and a very curious Freddie were all ready to go. "It's okay," Maggie replied to her parents' surprised faces. "Mr. Marshall knows." She put on her coat and went to the car. Her family followed. In the front seat of the car, Mother and Father talked parent talk. In the back seat, Freddie asked all kinds of questions like, "What's in your hair? Will it come out? Why didn't you tell me this was a costume party? Will others be wearing costumes? Mom, why don't I have a costume? What's in the box? Open it. Can I see? Can I? Can I?" Maggie didn't answer him. She just sat with the box on her lap in a dignified silence. Finally, Maggie was free of Freddie's questions. They were at Mr. Marshall's. Freddie ran ahead to ring the doorbell, but before he did, the front door opened and Mr. Marshall warmly welcomed him in. "Happy Naw Ruz, Bernie. Happy Naw Ruz, Diane." "Hey, handsome," he said to Freddie. "Maggie!" Maggie removed her sunglasses. Her eyes sparkled a greeting, but she only nodded hello. Mr. Marshall bent over, and he and Maggie exchanged some whispers, which Freddie really tried but couldn't hear. Then, with practiced precision, she strode to a very large chair, seated herself, replaced a wayward curl, secured her crown, and smoothed her cape and cradle in her wand. Maggie received many curious glances, but nobody said anything about Maggie's appearance. What could they say? Well, this was rather unusual. Maggie was a rather unusual girl. Whatever Maggie was going to do, they knew it too would be unusual. But what could it be? They'd just have to wait. As more people arrived, the party grew louder and louder. Mr. Marshall spoke of the weather as he served food and drink. Mrs. O'Sullivan played the piano and sang songs of spring. Mr. and Mrs. Alasky talked to the neighborhood children, newly born and quite grown, and Maggie's younger friends were having a great time. Shana, Ramin, and Freddie all ate eagerly while Emily, Michael, and Lua danced with great glee. But Maggie just sat on the large throne-like chair, silently waiting. There was joyous Naw Ruzes and Happy New Year's and all kinds of nice yummies and laughter, and Maggie just sat. Finally, it was time for serious words to be said, and finally it was time for Maggie. Mr. Marshall greeted his guests and began with a prayer. "Praise be thou, O my God, that thou hast ordained Naw Ruz as a festival for those who have observed the fast for love of thee, and abstain from all that is abhorrent unto thee." At the end of the prayer, Mr. Marshall winked at Maggie. She placed her little box on the table and stood up on the chair. She raised her wand and said, "Today is spring. Today all is new. Today is a day that I bring gifts to you." With that, Maggie got down from the chair. "What's in the box?" asked Lua curiously. Maggie smiled, then regained her regal composure. "My gifts I called nesses. I'm sure that you'll see that nesses are very necessary." "Nesses," said Maggie, "for you and for me." Quickly, Maggie opened her box. The nesses were brilliant. They were shaped like hearts and stars and diamonds and moons. On one side was a little round mirror surrounded by glitter, and on the other was a clearly written ness word. Maggie carefully selected one star-shaped nest, and with a wave of her hand, she proudly presented it to Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall bowed in return and placed the star to his heart. Maggie kindly requested, "Mr. Marshall, would you please speak the nest word that's written on your star?" "Yes, Maggie," said Mr. Marshall. And he said, "Happiness." "Mr. Marshall, when you look in the little mirror, what do you see?" Mr. Marshall smiled and said, "Me." Each guest was equally and regally presented with a nest word like kindness and faithfulness and trustworthiness. Each guest humbly received it. Some smiled, some giggled, some nodded, some cheered, and some people just simply wiped away a small tear. And after each guest had their nest in their hand, they looked in the mirror, pressed it to their heart. There was happiness and truthfulness and thoughtfulness and hopefulness, carefulness and cleanliness, friendliness and generousness, holiness and tenderness, kindness and curiousness, politeness and forgiveness, peacefulness and trustworthiness, blessedness and tenderness, and in the end, thankfulness. Once again, Maggie stood up on the chair and waved her wand. This time she had a huge smile on her face. Mom says that fast is to praise and remember God. Well, just because I'm too young doesn't mean I couldn't too. Remember the virtues you sent me? Each day I practiced one word and then decorated the nest card with sparkles and love. That's how I got ready for the new year, and now I return them to you. With that, Maggie jumped down from the chair, placed the crown on Mr. Marshall's head, tossed the wand to Freddie, and started munching on a cookie. Slowly, everyone woke from Maggie's nest spell, silently vowed to practice their word, and continued with the party. In the car on the way home, Freddie, with a cookie crumb still on his face, kept staring at himself in the mirror of his nest card. Maggie, he said, her half-asleep little brother, I'm going to do my word every day. Maggie smiled and wiped his face clean of crumbs. Freddie, that's a good idea. Back in her room, Maggie returned the wand, cape, and crown to the box and pushed it back into the closet. Maggie was very happy. The covers all snuggled around her. She softly said a little prayer she had memorized. O most glorious Lord, make this little maidservant of thine blessed and happy. With that, Maggie's eyes fell shut, and in her dream she continued her prayer. Cause her to be cherished at the threshold of oneness, so that she may be filled with rapture and ecstasy, and diffuse sweet-smelling fragrance. Thou art the mighty and the powerful, and thou art the all-knowing and all-seeing. Ayyam-i-Ha. I hope you enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed telling it to you.